being a child of the King. And I can say that without hesitation. If you're not a child of the King, Jesus said you're a child of what? What he said? He said you're a child of the devil. So, being a child of the King beats that in dead week, right? Amen. Take your Bibles this morning and let's go over to the Gospel of Luke. Luke chapter number 19. Great familiar story here we're going to look at with some tremendous lessons for us. Ray, do the best you can to give me all we can without getting a bunch of feedback and stuff. My voice is just not where it needs to be this morning. We're doing the Gospel of John on Wednesday nights, having a good time with that. But listen, when you think about being a Christian, it's all about being a follower of Jesus Christ. And as I preach and look for sermons and decide where we're going to go with things, I try to be very balanced. I do a lot of Old Testament preaching. You've seen that. I want to be sure we do plenty of gospel preaching, the Gospels, and talk about Jesus and his life and his ministry and his death, burial, and resurrection, all those things. And so I like to go to these Gospels, and here's a great story about a wee little man. We all know the little song. Zacchaeus was a wee little man, and a wee little man was he. He climbed up in a sycamore tree, for his Lord he wanted to see. And as Jesus came passing by, he said, "Zacchaeus, you come down, for I'm going to your house today." And a lot of you are helping me with the words on that, but a wee little man, Zacchaeus. And if you'll notice in Luke chapter number 19, it says, Jesus entered and passed through Jericho. And behold, there was a man named Zacchaeus, which was the chief among the publicans, and he was rich. And he sought to see Jesus, who he was, and could not for the press. That doesn't mean the reporters and such. That just means the press of people, the crowds of people, because he was little of stature. Let's do this message today on a wee little man. Let's talk about number one. First of all, let's talk about the man, Zacchaeus, the man. You know, we read these stories, and we don't need to go through them too quickly. And you ought to stop and read these stories and ponder them. Here is the story of a man. A man who had a life, who went about his business, had his ups and his downs, no doubt. He'd been a successful man. It says he was chief among the publicans. And who were the publicans? They were the tax collectors. And he had advanced his career. He'd done well, and his superiors liked him. And as time went along, he went up the corporate ladder, and he became chief among the publicans. And you think about what it meant to be a publican. Let me ask you, what do you think the thought was about the publicans? When the IRS man comes knocking on your door, what do you think? when you get that notice, you're going to be audited. Anybody ever been audited? Ever been audited? Oh, come on. Okay, I'm praying I never get audited. I'm trying to do things right. But boy, you just know when the tax man comes, they're going to try to find something that you've done wrong and sock it to you, and penalties and all. Oh my goodness. So what do we think about the tax man, the IRS man? We know a guy, his wife taught for us up in the school for many years, and he now works for the IRS. How did you get that job? I don't know, but he's working the IRS. He wasn't well liked, obviously, by those around him. He might have been liked by his peers, by his fellow tax collectors and the people he answered to. He'd been very successful. Says he was rich. He was rich. You know, we think about down and outers. There are down and outers. There are homeless people. There are people that are their lives have not been successful. They've had tragedy and trouble and difficulty, sometimes of their own doing, sometimes not. But there are also up and outers. People that appear to be successful, but their lives are still empty. Money, and if you don't know this, money does not bring happiness. Money, in fact, money can bring a lot of sorrow and heartache. I just read this week, the story was one of the lead stories on Yahoo News all week long about the rapper, Miller. I don't know the rappers, but he was only like 26 years old, died of a drug overdose. That's tragic. And I guess that whole scene lends itself to drugs and partying and such, and how many people in that scene have died early deaths. I mean, very early, 30 and under. I mean, you can just start clicking along. Up and outers, down and outers. But here's a man, the life. Number two, he's on a mission. We have the mission. Notice what it says in verse number 3. And he sought to see Jesus, who he was, and he could not for the press, because he was little of stature. And he ran before and climbed up into a sycamore tree to see him, for he was to pass that way. Zacchaeus, with all of his success, he had some curiosity. He wanted to see this man, Jesus. And he no doubt had heard about him. He'd heard about the things that Jesus had done. And it was in his mind, I'm going to see who this man is. He's on a mission. And Jesus was so popular. As you read the Gospels, you realize this. Wherever Jesus went, there was a crowd of people. He had to slip away in the still of night to find some alone time, or get in a boat. I mean, even then, boats would follow him, and Jesus was always mobbed with people. I was reading the other day about Jesus' triumphal entry, and the crowds that thronged him that day as he rode that donkey into the city. And it says, because they had seen what he had done. People were there and beholding his miracles and his good deeds and his kindness and his teaching that was very much unlike the teaching of the scribes and the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the religious leaders. And Zacchaeus is on a mission. He wants to see this man that he's heard so much about. And he's so determined. So he did whatever he could, what he had to do to be able to see Jesus. You know, today people enjoy seeing celebrities, famous people. And they'll go to a concert or to a stadium or something, and they'll fight the mobs and fight the crowd. And we've never been into getting autographs. I don't know. Some people are. They when they get close enough, they'll stick a hat out or a program or a scorecard or something, and they want to get an autograph from a famous person. One time, a guy that was in our Sunday school class was in the National Guard, and he took us to this big National Guard demonstration down in Virginia. We flew one of these big C-130s or whatever. We flew down there, and we were watching all the demonstrations. I mean, they were shooting bombs. I mean, it was a big deal. And all of a sudden, I saw the governor of Maryland walking down the road. And the guy I was with, his name was Mike. He said, "Mike, here's my camera." I'm going to go out there, and if he comes by me, you snap a picture. So I ran out there, and the old Governor Schaefer was walking by, and I stuck my hand out, and Governor Schaefer stuck his hand out, and I shook his hand. And Mike got a picture of us. So I have a picture of me shaking Schaefer's hand. Zacchaeus wanted to see Jesus. It wasn't going to be easy. He was short. I don't know how short is, but he's short. And he couldn't see over the people. So he said, I know what I'll do. I'm going to go climb up in this sycamore tree. You know the feeling. I got some of you know the feeling. And he climbed up in the sycamore tree because he wanted to see Jesus. Listen, anybody that knows anything about Jesus would want to see him. It's a shame that today there are people that are just not interested. They don't know about Jesus. Or they don't believe it. You know, all the fairy tales. You know, your sky fairy. That's what they say. Well, listen, if you know Jesus, you want to see him. You want to meet him. You'd like for him to do something for you. He's done something for so many people. And he wanted to see Jesus. He's on a mission. I want you to notice in verse number 5. When Jesus came to the place, he looked up and saw him. And said to Zacchaeus, he knew his name. Zacchaeus, make haste and come down. For today I must abide at thy house. And he made haste and came down and received him joyfully. We see his mansion. Let's use the word, get a word. Let's talk about his mansion for a moment. His house, his mansion. Jesus said, Zacchaeus, I want you to come down, and we're going to your house today. We're going to go, and I can imagine that Zacchaeus, who was rich, and who'd been very successful at what he did, maybe not, hadn't done it all right. The publicans were known to be unscrupulous. And from what we'll see in a few minutes, I think Zacchaeus had done some things. He cheated some people, but he probably lived in a very nice house. Maybe what we would call a mansion. Listen, you're like us. Every now and then we'll just go driving. In fact, we went driving the other day, Friday afternoon. We had been up in Lookout Mountain since we've been here in Edgewood. We went there some years ago, but so let's go up to Lookout Mountain. So we drove up to Lookout Mountain and went out to Point Lookout. We didn't get out of the car, so we'll do that later. And so we're just driving around. And down at that end, especially that end of the mountain where it comes to Point, what do you see up there? And just beautiful homes. Yeah. Do you ever drive down through those neighborhoods and say, wonder what that guy does? Wonder what he does? Tara used to work up there. She was a nanny for a good long while. And she worked, the husband and wife were both lawyers. And they're doing this, they're doing that, they're doctors, but he said, what the guy does? And I would imagine if you drove through Zacchaeus' neighborhood, you'd see his house, and if you didn't know something, wonder what that guy does. And somebody, he's a tax collector. No. But here's the thing. Jesus wanted to go to his house and have a sit with him. Somebody used to do a song, and it was, I remember the Gethsemane Quartet did it. And I forget the title of it, but the whole gist of it was, what if Jesus wanted to come to your house today? And it's got some lines in it. Would you have to put some magazines away, or change your radio station, or the TV channel. I mean, what if Jesus came to your house today? Would he be welcome? Would he feel comfortable? But Zacchaeus wanted to go to his house. Jesus wanted to go to Zacchaeus' house. And you know what? Look at this. It says he came down with haste and received him joyfully. Here this famous man who does miracles for people, this prophet, this great teacher, wants to come to my house. Would we receive Jesus joyfully? And I hope so. I think most of us would. Sometimes you have to do these security questions. You know, when you're logging into a site and they'll say, what are your questions? And I remember doing this one. What event would you like to witness in history? And I had to give an answer. Of course, if you give an answer, you got to remember what you say. Because if they come back on me with that question, you got to remember what you said. Usually, I want to put an answer that I know I get it right. And my answer was, I'd like to witness the resurrection. I'd like to see Jesus. He received him joyfully into his mansion, into his house. Then notice in verse 7 we have murmuring. And when they saw it, they all murmured. All the crowd, they start murmuring, saying that he has gone to be guest with a man that is a sinner. Can you imagine? All this great crowd, all this great press of people around Jesus. And Jesus decides to go to the house of a publican. Why did he go to my house? I'm not a sinner. He's a sinner. I'm trying to do right. I love Jesus to come to my house, but he's going to the house of a sinner. Well, listen, that tells you a whole lot about the people that are following Jesus. They're probably not quite where they ought to be, and probably a bunch of self-righteous hypocrites they are. The murmur. What better house for Jesus to go to than the house of the sinner? Right? Jesus, and I love this, the Bible says Jesus was a friend of sinners. Now, you be careful when you say that. He of course did not participate in the sinful things, but he was a friend of sinners. Listen, brother, if Jesus was not a friend of sinners, none of us would have a prayer of getting anywhere past his life. If Jesus wasn't a friend of sinners. Now, Jesus doesn't condone sin. Never did, never has, never will condone sin. And I'm afraid that there's a perception today that because we're all sinners, that gives us an excuse to sin. That's just not the case. Okay? It's just not the case. And that God's okay with it. God's not okay with it. But Jesus is a friend of sinners. And he wanted to go to the house of the sinner man. He knew where it was going. You remember the story, a very similar situation when the woman who was a sinner snuck into this dinner. It's all very curious how this all came about. And I'm trying to envision my mind. And they were probably eating in a courtyard that was close to the street or something. I'm trying to figure it out. But he's eating dinner, and all of a sudden, here's this sinner woman, and she's wiping and washing his feet with her hair and her tears. And those around said, oh, if Jesus knew who she was, he wouldn't let her touch him. Why? Because she's a sinner woman. Listen, I'm glad Jesus is a friend of sinners. But those around, well, they're murmuring. You know, when people, church, there's a world out here full of sinners. And somehow we've got to touch these sinners. Somehow we've got to touch these sinners. We've got to get out of the four walls and touch the sinners. And at the very least, when the sinners slip into our house, we've got to touch it. At the very least. And when the sinners walk through the door, we've got to be a friend of the sinners, just like Jesus was a friend of sinners. And again, we understand this in no way condones sin. But there are people out here that they're hurting in their lives. They're searching, they're seeking, just like Zacchaeus. He was on a mission. He was looking for something. And there are people out here that are looking for something. What are they looking for? I'll tell you what, it can't be found in a pill. It can't be found in a needle. It can't be found in a bottle. It can't be found in a bed. What they're looking for is Jesus. And somehow we've got to touch the sinners. And Jesus went to the mansion, the house of him that was a sinner. Even meant the murmuring by the crowd. I've known of people that it was their ministry to visit the bars and sit down with the sinners. So, I would never do that. Well, Jesus was known to eat and drink with publicans and sinners, wasn't he? We've got to touch them even in spite of the murmuring. But then there is what I'm calling a manifestation. Here's Zacchaeus joyfully received Jesus into his house. Let me tell you where he also, I believe, received him joyfully into his heart and life. Okay? I think Zacchaeus joyfully accepted Jesus as his Messiah. So how do you know that? It was manifested in his deeds. It was manifested in his life. Jesus changed his life. When Jesus comes into your life, comes into your house, comes into your heart, he's going to change you. Here's the manifestation of that change. Look, verse number 8. Zacchaeus stood, and he said to the Lord, Behold, Lord, the half of my goods I give to the poor. Would you take half of your net worth and give it away? You know, we see some of these billionaires. You know, in a way, Bill Gates, I doubt Bill Gates is a Christian. I don't think I've never seen anyone indicate that he's a Christian. However, I do have respect for Bill Gates because he challenged these other multi-billionaires to give huge chunks of their net worth away to good causes, to humanitarian causes. And I forget how many billions, billions with a B, how many billions Bill Gates pledged to humanitarian causes. I respect that. That doesn't make you a Christian. It doesn't make you a follower of Christ. You're doing something kind of Christian, yes, but it doesn't make you a follower of Christ. But Zacchaeus received Jesus, and it obviously has changed his life and changed his heart and changed his direction. He said, I'm going to give away half of my goods to the poor. And not only that, look at this. And if I've taken anything from any man by false accusation, here's where the publicans weren't very scrupulous. They were very crafty and deceitful, and they cheated, and they would get out of people what they could. And send the taxes in and keep the rest. And if I've taken anything by false accusation, notice what he says, I will restore unto him fourfold. Has Jesus changed your life? Listen, some people have some pretty dramatic testimonies. I mean, they were down in the depths of sin and alcoholics and drug addicts and all this, that, and the other. But the fact of the matter is, before you're saved, we're sinners. Some of us don't have that kind of drastic testimony, but I'll tell you what, if Jesus has come into your life, He's changed you. He's changed you. I read you the story of my brother Wednesday night. A couple of things my brother posted. And he was 14 when he got saved. And he wrote, I thank God every day for that, the life that He's given me. He has a Christian wife, Christian children, grandchildren. And my brother probably was not on the best track. In fact, when he in the church service where he got saved, he raised his hand and he didn't know he was going to go to heaven. And the preacher would said, "Is that a boy or a girl? He's got long hair." He did that. Well, my brother got saved, and he's lived a good life. I mean, they're faithful Christian believers, church members. My sister got saved. She was probably 18 before she got saved. I mean, truly saved. And she wasn't on the right track. She got saved. I don't know where I'd be. I don't know where I'd be if I hadn't gotten right with the Lord. I want to do the right thing, basically, but listen, I was just like everybody else. Changed his life. It meant, and his conversion was manifested in his change in behavior. That's repentance. And lastly, notice verse 9 and 10. The moral of the story. The moral. The moral of the story. What's the point of the story being in the Bible? Here it is. Jesus said to him, "This day is salvation come to this house." Again, Zacchaeus got saved. He got born again. For as much as he also is a son of Abraham. All of us are children of Abraham, right? You read Romans. Abraham had many sons, and I am one of them. The little chorus that people, from childhood song that people sing. Abraham had many sons, and I am one of them. So let's just praise the Lord. He became a son of Abraham that day. How's that? Abraham was a man that was saved by faith. He believed God was counting him for righteousness. And everybody gets saved by faith, which is the only way to get saved. You become a child of Abraham. He became a child of Abraham. He got saved. And it says, in verse 10, "For the Son of Man is come to seek and to save that which was lost." Jesus came to save the lost. He came to reach the sinner. What did Jesus say? There's more rejoicing over one lost sheep that's found than 99 that are already in the fold. And every lost sinner out here, Jesus came to save them. He came to seek and to save that which was lost. That was Jesus' mission. This is the point of this story, the moral. Son of Man has come to seek and to save that which was lost. We see people out here say, "Oh my goodness, look at that. Look at that." That's who Jesus died for. That's who Jesus came to save. That person right there. Look what they're doing. Oh, Jesus came to save that person. It's like He came to save you. The world's full of sinners. Jesus died for every one of them. And it's part of our mission to help in that mission. To take Jesus to people. He wants to save them. The wee little man. His man. Successful for lost. Needed Jesus. Had sense enough to go see him. He did. And Jesus had enough love and compassion. He said, Zacchaeus, I want to go to your house. And he received him joyfully. And it changed his life. He got saved. Bow our heads together. The wee little man. Oh, it takes these stories. They're boys and girls, and they're neat stories, memorable. Kids like them. But hey, there's something here for us, brethren. I mean, big time. Let's get it. Let's get it. Glad Jesus loves all of us. Sinners though we are, He's a friend of sinners. Came seeking to save sinners. Let's see if we can help Him with that. Father, what a precious story. No, we sometimes read these stories and, oh, what a good Sunday school story. But Lord, it's for us too. Powerful, powerful. Help us to learn from it and apply it to our lives. I pray that each of us is made absolutely certain that we've asked Jesus into our house, into our life. We've received Him joyfully. Now, Lord, help us realize the mission, the moral of this story. Jesus came to save the lost. Help us be a part of that. In Jesus' name we pray. Brother Tommy?